Hey everyone, I'm Oliver. I'm the founder of Dashboard Daddy, and I set up Dashboard Daddy at 17 years old, took it to thousands of pounds a month in revenue, and I want to teach you to do exactly the same thing. So it all starts with one point, and that is you have to learn a high income skill. And it's really important for this stage. I think people often think that they can work with contractors to get the project done. You act as the middleman. But if you are 17, 18, 19, or you're doing a project, you're in a new business, whatever, you're launching it for the first time, you cannot work with a contractor. You have to deliver that project yourself. And the reason behind that is because contractors, no matter where you're getting a contractor from, the rate they offer for a good quality contract is going to be higher than the rate you should be offering for a client project that you're delivering for the very first time. So when you're getting started, the reality you need to accept is you need to undersell yourself. That could even be free work, but most of the time it needs to be definitely below what kind of established competitors are offering. Because obviously what you're trying to do is you're trying to build experience, you're trying to build trust with clients, and hopefully, down the line you can raise your prices and have them as kind of recurring clients. So it's really important that you choose a high income skill and you stick with that high income skill. So obviously that can be anything from copywriting to AI to SEO to Facebook ads. When you're picking one, make sure firstly it's something you can retain on a month-to-month basis. So when I set up Dashboard Daddy, we kind of did one-off software projects, and I had to kind of revert that later down the line to establish how can I bring in MRR to the business every month. So with things like digital marketing, it's typically done on a monthly retainer basis. But if you're looking at something like web design, you may want to think, what's a way I can turn this into kind of recurring revenue once the design is complete? So you may have an upfront cost of building a project, but the holy grail of setting up a business and establishing a business and scaling that business is building monthly recurring revenue. And I also want you to pick a skill that you think you can learn within about 3 months. Now, obviously, you're not going to be an expert in this skill within 3 months, but if you dedicate a few hours every day to watching and learning this skill, you can definitely get to an intermediate point with that skill. So something like learning to code in Python probably isn't achievable in 3 months. But other things like digital marketing, web design, Bubble, AI, you can get a really, really good grounding of that in 3 months, and that can get you started. Also, when you're picking a skill, you want to think, okay, what's a skill that's not going anywhere anytime soon? So something kind of outdated like copywriting, you may want to kind of be on top of things. So I was in SEO, and I think SEO is great. It's an amazing industry to be in. But I moved out for a couple of reasons. And the first reason was I didn't really enjoy the work I was doing. And if you're picking a skill and you're selling that to your clients, you've got to be passionate about that skill, but you've also got to love delivering on the work. So you will find what you love, definitely hop around at the start. But once you've picked a skill, you really, really need to focus, and you want to make sure you are building a business around one skill. Don't set up a digital marketing agency. Don't offer SEO, Facebook ads, PPC, because that's not how this is going to work. You have to pick one skill as specific as you can that still applies to a broad audience, and you have to sell that skill as much as you possibly can. And so the second reason I moved out of SEO was partly because of the opportunity I saw in no-code software development and that I saw in AI. SEO had kind of a similar position to AI. If we look at it 20 years ago, when Google kind of was just getting properly started and people had access to it, and websites were seeing the opportunity of being online. I wanted to be in an industry that was kind of emerging, which is why I moved into kind of no-code software development, AI, automations, because I saw the opportunity where no one really knows where this industry is going, and no one really knows yet how we can productize it. And that's the exciting thing, kind of working out how to productize a newly emerging industry. And the third thing you're going to have to accept is you're going to have to spend a lot of time often doing some of the things you don't want to do. Definitely going to have to spend time doing lots of different things. For example, at the start, you are going to have to do your accounts. You're going to have to manage your website. You're going to have to do your social media. Even if they're not all the things you love, that's what you've got to focus your time on. And it's much, much better that you do that yourself instead of paying someone else to do it, so you can build up that savings in the bank and reinvest it properly into the things you need to be reinvesting into with your business. And obviously the hardest bit of setting up any new business is how do you get your first client? And my number one rule for that is absolutely stick to one strategy of lead generation. So it could be cold email, it could be something like LinkedIn, it could even be something like TikTok, Instagram, whatever. You have to pick one, you have to focus on it. Because realistically, posting on LinkedIn and building cold email strategies, they're all skills. And that's another skill you're learning on top of the skill that you're already selling. So for me, it was LinkedIn. You know, there are kind of two aspects that I've been taught to LinkedIn. There's the posting side, which is the demand generation, and then there's going into Sales Nav or LinkedIn or whatever and finding your leads. And that's the lead gen side. So when you put those two things together, you can have a really, really solid LinkedIn strategy. I would recommend, if you're starting a business for the first time, not to go down the alley of kind of cold emails, because cold emails realistically are getting harder and harder. And I'm not at all saying they're not possible, but you have to be more and more skilled to do them. And often you're going to waste your time and money a lot of the time if you're just throwing yourself straight into a kind of cold email campaign and getting things and working things out for the first time. I would try build your personal brand, whether that's on LinkedIn, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on TikTok. Because if you can build a solid personal brand, that's what brands are going to trust. That's what's going to help you to build your first client. And to build a solid personal brand, you need to focus on your unique selling points. So not the USPs of your product, what makes you different? And obviously for me, I was saying that I'm 17, that I was kind of one of the youngest founders at the world's biggest business show. You've got to find a way to sell yourself over everyone else. Because at the end of the day, it's more your own personality that sells a product rather than the product itself. Because realistically, there are thousands of other people offering exactly the same service to you. And I think a misconception people have a lot of the time is, let's say you're 17 like I was, how are you going to sell something for thousands of pounds a month, and how are people even going to start to trust you? And that's where the kind of research element starts. So my most successful kind of cold outreach strategy, which I didn't come up with myself, but was about asking people for help to get on calls and to get feedback from my ICP. So ICP is my ideal customer profile, basically my ideal market, who I want to sell my product to. And a really good way I found was I'd send a connection message saying, hi, name, saw you got loads of experience in X. Would you mind if you offer a little bit of feedback about what I'm working on? So for me, it was about kind of contacting digital marketing agencies and saying, would you mind giving a little bit of feedback? People come back and say, absolutely. I'd send over a Loom video. They'd give feedback. Some people will get on calls and we'd be able to sell to them through there. But even if you're not selling products directly in that way, what you're doing is speaking to your ICP, and speaking to those people is the most important thing you can do when setting up a business, and the point which most people forget about. If you can buy 15 minutes of someone's time and ask them more about their industry, more about the product you're trying to sell, it gives you a much better idea of what element of those businesses you can target, how you can work your way into those businesses, and the more time you spend researching your ideal customer profile, the more information you have to go in and kind of build a proper strategy targeting those businesses. And then the final thing I'd say is kind of, let's say you spend 2 to 3 months learning that high income skill. Don't stop learning that when you launch the business and you start kind of doing outbound campaigns and posting on LinkedIn, whatever you're doing to generate leads, don't stop learning that skill. Dedicate a couple hours a day to keep going over that skill, keep improving that skill, because realistically, learning that skill is never going to be a regret, and you're going to be able to apply that to loads of different things, even if you decide that you want to move into something completely different in the future. So I am documenting my journey on YouTube as an 18-year-old founder, and if you're interested to follow my journey, subscribe below.